welcome to Conversations with Trudy. Thank you so much for joining me on the program, Dani and Chassidy. It's a pleasure having you both.
Of course.
Thank you for inviting us.
Congratulations on your achievements, on achieving what BFA you're in acting, and Chassidy in
film production.
Okay, okay. Great, awesome. So let's get started. We would like to welcome all our viewers on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. And we're going to have Chassidy and Dani talk about themselves. Just tell us a little about yourselves. Chassidy, we'll start with you.
Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm a Brooklyn native, so born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I initially started out in theater with Danielle in high school. It wasn't until like my senior year that I started getting more interested in film.
Which high school was that?
Oh, Talent Unlimited in New York City. So I attended Talent Unlimited for my high school, and then I applied for film production majors. And then I got into Emerson College, which is in Boston. And then I completed my BFA degree there. Yeah, we were both in Boston, but never saw each other, which is the funniest part.
Like across the city.
Yeah. So while I was at Emerson, I really focused in on directing and cinematography. I had a few internships with a few production companies. Some were more in the beauty world. So I did an internship over the summer with Cosmopolitan in New York City. And then Glam Squad, which is also in New York City, and then a few internships such as Element in Boston, which is a local production company. They do a lot of commercials for banks and different institutions. I also completed my first official short film while I was in Emerson. And we're still in post-production, but it's so close to be releasing. And I've made a few works along the way, but that's one of the most notable ones so far.
Awesome. That's amazing. Tell us a little about working at Cosmopolitan. What was that like?
It was really interesting because they are more of a beauty company. And that was my first internship with anything with production. So it was really interesting seeing how a New York City production company is kind of run. And seeing how they manage talent as well, and seeing how producers continuously network with each other. It was definitely a really interesting and worthwhile experience. And that was my first internship, and I was really lucky and blessed to be able to have that. But it was definitely a lot of hard work. And it was such a small crew, as I think most media sectors for magazines are in New York City. So there were 3 camera people and editors, so they did everything basically, and then there were 2 producers, and I was on the producing team as a production assistant. So I would get lunch, make sure that all the talent that we were filming with, like celebrities, were filling out their release forms, organizing things for producers, things like that. So it was really great to kind of get the behind the scenes look at production before actually going into like production heavy stuff such as cinematography.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah.
Hey, that's great. Now, Dani, tell us about that.
As Chassidy said, we kind of started out with theater together, which was awesome. Great old days. I am a daughter of 2 engineers. So originally I really thought I was going to be an engineer. Like I was all for STEM. I did so many summer science programs, like it's ridiculous. And then junior year of high school, when it's around the time we kind of start thinking about college and what we want to major in, I started noticing a huge trend in my life. I went to school for acting, middle school for acting. I was in an acting after school program. And then I thought to myself, what am I doing? Like, I think I'm going to be an actor. And that was a huge conversation with my parents that are immigrants and are engineers and are very successful. And they don't think that art is the best pathway for, you know, being successful in life. But I begged them, I showed them my passion. They came to a performance and they really saw what it was all about. Like, it's something about just being there and seeing what it is to be an artist that makes you kind of just forget everything else, and it's just like, this is like the future. This is going to change the world, and that's what I aim to do. I'm a very aggressively loving person when it comes to being an artist. I am super compassionate. You will never not notice me in a room because I'm so involved in everything that I do. Like I said, after school program, Tadayu Theater is where I started my little artist journey, and then went to TU, Talent Unlimited. And then I just graduated from Boston U, right across the way from Emerson. And I went abroad during my Boston University 4 years in my junior year, and I worked with an amazing, cute little company called Chicken Shed that is all about inclusivity in theater. And it was just amazing to be overseas and work with just people who have such a different outlook on theater, because in London or in England, art is funded by the government. So it's just such a necessity to them. And it's kind of different here in America, just a little bit different, but it's like, it makes a huge difference in how you value it and how you look at art, because it makes it an actual job, like an actual, which it is, but like in London, you get funded for it.
Okay. So tell us about the program itself, the study abroad program itself.
Well, I worked with the study abroad program. The program was called, I don't remember what the program was called, but I do know that I kind of had to work outside the program. I'm also the type of person to kind of work outside the lines. If there's,
were you attending classes?
I was attending classes. I did statistics. I couldn't give up math, and I did statistics and theater studies, London theater studies, and I was part-time at the internship, and I actually was supposed to end the internship a lot earlier than I was, but I loved it so much that I did a whole performance there, but kids theater performance there, so I just had to.
So how long did you stay?
I stayed for, I will say 3-4 months. It was kind of 3.5 months. And I adapted very quickly because I'm just that person that just like into the life, into cultures of different cities, different people. And, they accepted me rather quickly too. They heard it rather quickly.
Was that the first time you've been away from your family for so long?
That was the first time I've been away from my family for so long. Yeah. It was hard. It was very hard. Me and my mom are kind of attached at the hip, and me and my sister are even more attached. So being away from my sister and my mom was really, really hard. There was a lot of stuff going on in the family too at the time. So I just really had to be strong overseas for everyone, and at the same time, focus on my career and networking myself. And, basically when life hits you, I had to brace myself for that.
Awesome. All right, that's great. So tell us now, this question is for both of you, and Chassidy will go first since you went first. How has COVID-19 impacted you, and what are you looking forward to most when the city is completely, the entire country has completely?
Well, I was really lucky in the sense that I got a part-time job right before New York City went into lockdown. So I am a part-time teacher at the Boys and Girls Club in New York City. So what I was doing in person was I was a digital art specialist. So I was teaching kids about the computer, basic like computer skills, but also how to paint and draw and make videos and how to podcast and things like that. And starting to get into photography basics with the members. So moving online with that kind of job was really interesting. I kind of am more of a counselor now, like a camp counselor rather than an actual art teacher. Because I don't think that my direct supervisors understand how to take something that was maybe in one designated space and transfer it over Zoom, right? So we also do use Zoom. So it's been slightly challenging as an artist, also a teacher, to kind of keep myself inspired in my own means of what I usually art, so the mediums I use to make art. So, but in that sense, it's been also really inspiring to branch out to different mediums such as painting and illustrating and graphic design and writing. So it took me a while to like figure out how I like to use those mediums. So silver lining with everything. But with my actual film that I've been working on, which is Missing First Period, which tells a story of a week in the life of a high school senior as she struggles with homelessness, but also as she's going to get a scholarship. That's been kind of put on pause because a lot of the people who are working for me were students, and they were also working for free, so generous because they believe so much in the idea. But because everyone's kind of everywhere, understandably so, it's been taking a lot longer time for like me to finally put the ribbon on the project. But yeah.
All right.
I think the one thing, oh, I'm sorry. The one thing I am looking forward to is like actually seeing people in person. I feel like I've gotten so used to like talking online and talking through the phone that I forget that I can hug people and like touch people and like hear someone's laugh in person outside of like my mom's laugh. But it'd be so nice to actually do those like little things again.
Awesome. I think we all are looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Dani?
I feel like this whole pandemic came at the perfectly worst time ever, like perfectly worst. I had just came back from my spring break, and as a senior at BU, there's a showcase during spring break, and you perform in front of a lot of managers and agents who are looking, and even networking companies who are looking for people to hire, people to put on screen, people to put on stage. So fortunately, I snagged a manager, an agency at CGF. Fortunately, I was so looking forward to go out on auditions and go out and meet people in person, and just because for some reason I love auditioning. I don't know if it's a competition of it all or just meeting new people. I don't know what it is, but I love auditioning. And as soon as it was like a Thursday, as soon as I just left an audition, I got an email that canceled literally everything else, canceled school, canceled my further auditions, canceled my further meetings. And that's when I knew this thing was serious. And it like literally that day, I was standing in the middle of the city in a pandemic that just canceled everything, about to get on the train to go home. I literally was so scared. I was like, I just felt empty at that moment, like truly, truly lost in a city that I grew up in. So it was crazy. So because I was fortunate enough to snag an agency when I did, I've been putting myself up for self-tape auditions a lot. And I don't know about you guys, but the self-tape world might not be for me. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep trying. But it's just, I hear that I'm a good scene partner from other people. At this point, I don't know how much I believe it because I'm literally working with myself and it's hard. It's really hard to work with me. So I'll see what more I can do for myself and improving my skills in that. But I will say that this has helped me get a further step into what my life was going to be after graduation before a lot of other grads could. And I'm very fortunate for that because I've been able to kind of transform my home space where I've been Danielle, the daughter, the sister, into being Dani, the artist, the powerhouse, the space taker-upper that I am. So I got a head start on that, which I'm grateful for.
All right, great, sounds good. So following up on that question, has the lockdown affected your desire to create, or have you been inspired or been uninspired? Do you want to go continue, Danielle, since you were?
It's just been interesting because I've never really been a homebody as a person. And then on top of it, as an artist, I've never found a creative outlet at home. I've just always been out and finding my creative outlets outside of home. So coming back home to my house, which I've designated a place to be caring, a place to nurture, a place to be relaxed, I had to change my mindset and recreate and find little corners where I could be weird and do breathing techniques on the floor and roll around, and find other corners where I could just record myself doing something silly. So having my family to watch me do that has been Amazing. So they know what I've been doing in school for so long, and what they've been paying so much for is me rolling on the floor. But I do think that I have improved a lot from when this pandemic first started off, because when you designate a certain space as something, it is hard to readjust it in your mind. So it kind of has taught me how to be really flexible and really adaptable with my art wherever I go. So maybe you'll see me doing some street art, is what I'm saying.
Okay. Look forward to that. How do you feel stressed at any time?
I did feel really stressed, especially with like school online. Art school online is not easy. I bet teaching, as you said, online has been very difficult. I was also finishing up some prerequisites, and that was not easy either. I had to wake up at 8 a.m. and talk in Spanish and then readjust my mind to talking in English for the rest of the day. So that was not easy, especially at home. But I do think that, from the stress levels and from being at home really stressed, it kind of taught me how I can cope with those stressful thoughts at home, which I was going to have to do after graduation anyways.
So do you have any particular coping mechanisms that you use to get?
Yeah. I realized that if I stay in my room too long, I will go to sleep. So I have made it a mission to make my bed, get ready as if I am going somewhere, and literally sit in the dining room, sit in the living room, sit in the kitchen, or sit outside, because if I like I said, I'll stay in my room, I'll do nothing all day. So I've found areas to be creative, productive, and to eat.
Okay. Your turn, Chassidy. What would you?
Well, I totally echo Danielle's sentiments. Like every morning I try and like wake up, put my feet on the ground as soon as I open my eyes, make my bed. So I feel like I'm at least accomplishing one thing out of the day. Because it's so hard to be inside, confined to your house all day, especially as a creative. And that's such a community job, you're always in constant communication with people. You're also like constantly doing things with other people, and to be confined in your house when that's not necessarily, like you said, Danielle, the place you make art, it's been really interesting to adjust. I am grateful that because I graduated a little early in December, I kind of had that grace period to adjust and transition a little bit my mindset. So for a month when I told myself I'm just gonna relax after 3.5 years of school and intense like training. And that was really hard to do, just to like relax and to be content with just being in the moment and not working actively outside of just brainstorming and creative things that I just wanted to do for fun. So going into, a lockdown in New York City after that, was a little bit easier for me because I kind of had a routine that I already set up for myself to keep myself inspired. I had this like on my notes app every day. I'd keep a list of things that I did, even if it was small. So I'd say I made breakfast, I did laundry, I went outside for a walk. Little tiny things to remind myself that I don't have to do these enormous tasks for myself to feel gratitude towards myself, but now I'm really sick of it. I really want to go outside, and I feel like that structure that I've set up is kind of collapsing slowly. I definitely do, because as a filmmaker, especially as a director / cinematographer, I have very crazy hours that I work. I'm on set for 14 hours a day. So I sleep whenever I get a chance to sleep. So I don't really have a like set sleeping schedule. And it's definitely coming back to bite me, because I will go to bed at like 4 a.m. and then wake up at like 1 a.m. So I'm really trying hard to change that, but that's naturally like when I normally go to sleep after I'm on set. But yeah, I'm just trying to have grace with myself and be gentle overall, because it definitely is hard for everyone. And I'm trying to keep that in mind, that, this is a common struggle. We're all going through it, but it's really hard. It's I beat myself up a lot as an artist. Like I'm not constantly creating or doing the things that I'm used to doing. But now hearing Danielle, I feel much better. And
Yes.
All right. So, all right. So, Chassidy, tell us about your film.
yes.
Yeah, we'd like to hear about that.
So this is a film that I started as a requirement for my BFA degree, actually. It's called Missing First Period. It chronicles a week in the life of a high school senior as she competes for a scholarship while simultaneously struggling with homelessness. So I wrote this my junior year of high school. It's based about my life. When I was in high school, I was homeless for all 4 years. I was living in different places. And that was a really hard and challenging time for me because no one really knew about that part of my life. Yeah, Daniel's like, no. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do that and did all of what you did. That's
yeah, exactly. So but I started doing a lot more research about youth homelessness, especially in America. And every year, close to 2 million young people between under the age of 18 actually experiences homelessness at one point during the year, and the number is growing. And I think that's not something that we're used to hearing in America around the topic of homelessness, especially with the media that we see on a daily basis, whether that's the news or whether that is films, right? We see generally either veterans who come home and they don't have equal protection for housing, or whether that's just adults who are dealing with substance abuse who end up being homeless because of that. But the actual most impacted group of homeless people are young people under the age of 18. So I really thought that was something important that I wanted to highlight, not only as a sense of, something that would be cathartic for me as a human being who went through that, but also for everyone else who goes through that and it's not really discussed. So that's something that I really am passionate about in my own work is social justice, but particularly the way we talk about things and the way we connect people to images that we see subconsciously. So I do a lot of psychological research before doing films about how we as humans look at images and connect them to people. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. So how were you able to keep your homelessness a secret from your friends?
I think, again, like I was saying about the whole connection and association with images to people, I think when you naturally think of a homeless person, you think of different things. You think about how they look and how they might smell or appear, or mentally their capabilities. And I think because I didn't match any of those things, no one thought to ask. But I mean, I was always late for first period. And I think that that's where the name comes from, because moving around for, either after a few months or a year, I would always kind of be late because I would eventually, it progressed to like an anxiety disorder where I would like constantly be really anxious in the morning. But I mean, also as a younger person, that's not something I think how to talk about with other people, especially if you see certain things in the media. That's not something that you feel an immense pride in. I think that's something that for me that would have taken a lot of strength, and I think I didn't enjoy that fact about my life, so it was hard to share it. And I think as a younger person too, understanding if I do tell someone, what can they realistically do? So it was one of those things where I was like, I'd rather not tell anyone because it's going to make me feel worse and they can't really do anything to help me,
until you say something. That's the thing.
That is true. But, I think that's, again, experience comes with age. And as a young person, going through that for the first time, it's a difficult thing to navigate, not only internally, but externally in a like more social sphere. What do you do? What do you say?
True. But I know a lot of young people, even adults, would use that as an excuse not to, do anything, not to do any work, not to, but you still persevered and you did extremely well in school. What was your motivation?
I get that question a lot. And I really never knew how to answer that until recently I came across this psychology term, or this branch of research called ACE, which stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And essentially, there's a list of questions that a psychologist might ask a child if they have been through, so maybe different traumatic experiences, right? So maybe while I had a higher number than the average for living a mentally um, healthy life, which means like achieving more success, quote unquote, there's also something called a resilience score. So things such as, do you feel that you have a community that supports you? Do you feel that your mother or father supports you? Do you feel that you're valued? Things like that, a psychologist might ask a child. And based on the test that I took for myself, I have a higher score for the resilience than the actual adverse child experiences. So from a psychological perspective, because of that, I do think that I had a very higher internal self-esteem about myself, and I knew that if other people believed in me and I had a strong community of friends, regardless if they knew my situation or not, and I had access to all of these different programs because of Talent Unlimited and our teachers like Mrs. Peacock or Mr. Nussbaum, that positively affected me and my mentality to know that there is more outside of the current circumstance of my life in the moment. So I think being surrounded by so much love and positivity, regardless, especially my mom, really helped me persevere mentally and have that resilience and grit to know that this is temporary and there is something down the line that I can still use this. Doesn't mean that it won't hurt and affect you in different ways. Like I still developed a lot of anxious characteristics because of that situation, but more good definitely did come out of it.
That's so awesome. So what change do you hope that your film will affect?
Well, I definitely want, first of all, for more conversations to happen interpersonally. I think that there might be a lot more people like me whose friends don't even know what they've been through, or people who maybe, I know even I have friends who've been cut off from their parents after graduation, even now during a pandemic, or who have toxic family relations, right? And are technically homeless right now. Um, and I want to remove that negative association of what it means to be homeless and who can be homeless, um, and really and truly start uh, advocating for more organizations who deal with the most vulnerable and people who are not really represented when we think about homelessness and homeless people. I don't think that America really prioritizes homeless people. Like, as for me, when I went through this, the first thing I thought about during lockdown was, where all the homeless people going to go, whether they're living in hotels, shelters, on trains, out on the street. And I think that's really the last thing a lot of people think about. And it should really be the first, the people without shelter, the people without access to food or running water on a regular basis. So really, I definitely want equality and equity for those people.
Awesome. What are your plans going forward for the film? Do you plan to submit to film festivals? Netflix?
Yeah, so I actually, this year, so the film was supposed to be finished a few months ago. But that's also before, Miss Corona came along. But because of the pandemic now, a lot of festivals, at least in America, are doing online festivals. And I always envisioned a theatrical release, which just means it's in a theater. You can see it on an actual screen, not via YouTube or any other streaming platform. I am going to wait a while and start submitting to other festivals later on in the year, because now that we're kind of coming out of this slowly and things are starting to reopen, I'm confident that other film festivals will start to reopen their theaters and do more theatrical releases next year. So I'm hoping that they will open, and I'm going to start submitting it starting in the summer when things start to reopen back up.
All right, sounds great.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Danielle, back to you. Is writing and directing in your future? Is that something you're considering as well?
I've been told, first of all, I just want to say, Chassidy, we need to have a conversation because like I always knew you were a force to be reckoned with, but I didn't know okay. I have been told that I have a directive mindset, and it's starting to creep in more and more as I start doing self-tapes, and almost to a point where it's like a aggressive voice in my head. So I think I need to kind of find an outlet where I have my director side and my actor side so that they don't fight to the death in my mind. So I am thinking about going in a route where I can explore my directive outlet. I've worked with Tada Youth Theater in assistant directing and helping out with, you know, the youth theater productions that we would do. And I found a love in that. So I'm just, and also I think of a director as a person who kind of opens up a space where people can be safe, can be fun, can play, and could make amazing art. And I always do that when it comes to planning trips with my friends anyway. So I direct in my daily life. I do think that it is in my future, yes. Also, writing wise, I have played around with writing. I've taken many writing classes in BU, and I have been told that there could be a future for me there. And I am just so attracted to the writing style of just angry diary entries. Like if you're just like mad and you kind of just like write everything in your diary that's in your mind, and then later on you come back to it and you're like, okay, that's kind of crazy, but then you still want to say it and you still think it's real. So that type of art is something that I could be writing in the future. I have similar interest as you, Trudy, in adapting a lot of, you know, life situations that happen in my life into other things. And I will say that I'm not sure I'm gonna fully develop myself into those outlets quite yet, because I'm still trying to figure this acting thing out. You know, I'm honestly, I'm a firecracker. I don't know what's gonna happen.
That's understandable. Okay, this is the second time you've mentioned Tada. Tell us about Tada, what you did there, and how it has enhanced your acting skills, creativity, etc.
Well, Tada honestly came to my life at a really rough patch in my middle school lifestyle, which is like, you know, a thing in of itself, you know, crazy mind, crazy little girl, wanted to do something with herself, didn't know what to do. So we found an ad in a newspaper for Tada. I went there when I was 10 years old, and my life was honestly changed ever since. I found lifelong friends at Tada, lifelong mentors at Tada. I just opened a world of creativity, and it made me feel like I had a voice, you know, and around me were other kids just like me who were restless, who were always getting in trouble in class for talking, always put in the corner of the classroom because they fiddled too much with their pencil and didn't do any work, and gave us a voice to use our energy, use our voices, use our opinion, use our thoughts to share information and to make other kids feel good and make other kids feel like they have the same voice, which they do. So that really just opened me up to a world, clearly, because that's where I found acting, that I can truly be myself.
Great. So what are your plans post-pandemic? Are you currently working on anything creative, job hunting?
I plan post-pandemic to get out there. Like I said, I love auditioning. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just love putting myself up to judgment. And I love just being in front of people, feeling people's vibes. I'm a very like aura-oriented person. I believe that we all give each other something, even if it's like a walking past each other on the street. So I'm going to be out and about again. So that's going to be really exciting. So look out, world. I also have a lot of things in the work with my agency. We're in conversations with a lot of different people. So that's good. Maybe something is going to happen, maybe not, but everything is going to be okay either way. I'm self-taping like crazy. I don't even know what it's like to be a person anymore. I just know what it's like to be on a screen at this point. And for the future, I just think that right, I've had a lot of conversations with people about what is going to happen future, like post-pandemic. And I think it's a lot of art that's going to be out there and a lot of art that's going to be produced and a lot of bodies that are going to be necessary. So I'm just really excited to put myself out there.
Awesome. Chassidy, what about you?
I think the first thing I'm looking forward to is going on a road trip.
Okay.
I think I just need to get out of New York City. I've had enough of New York City for a little bit. I definitely want to travel. And I think I'm planning a road trip with my friend from New York City to LA.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, it's gonna be fun. I think it's something that is needed, especially now, given, even just the climate with all the protests about, police reform and Black Lives Matter, that it's also important as Black people and as Black artists to really take time to recharge and step away. Because when you suffer as a person, I truly believe that your art or any medium you work in, it really does suffer as well. I'm really interested to see what post-pandemic life looks like. I'm scared based on what I've heard from my friends in California on the West Coast, where things are already starting to open back up, that people are still not going to care that much or take it seriously, even though I know a lot of people who work in like restaurant industries are trying to be safe and do their due diligence. There still are people who come in and are upset that people are wearing gloves or people are wearing masks. So I don't know how it's going to look, especially now there's so many protests happening, rightfully so. I mean, it's about time.
Yeah.
But it's also scary because you can really clearly see the political power that is against, the people, right? Who are fighting for equality, for equity rather, and for change. So I can't even imagine, once we can officially go outside and be near each other, the amount of power that we're going to have together as a collective. And I think that's something that I'm looking forward to even more, is really coming together as one group, one collective to affect change. I know a lot of artists, like you said, Danielle, it's going to take a lot of us, but we're ready and we're already starting to do work, So I'm excited for the art world after this. A lot of things are coming out. We want equity, especially as Black creators. A lot of our ideas are have been taken, historically, and not given credit or being, allocated the funds to Black people, any like oppressed person's, narrative and voice. So I'm excited that we are finally getting the recognition that I know we deserve, and all the people in the past historically who have deserved the credit, who've given us platforms, you, me, to do what we do and to do and love it, So I'm hopeful.
You're hopeful. All right. Inclusiveness in the arts for all races and backgrounds, abilities, genders, and sexuality. What are your views on that?
I think, well, I am such a huge advocate for that first and foremost. Everyone deserves a place at the table, but it is kind of disappointing how hard it is to actually achieve that. I went to Emerson College. We both were in Boston. I actually never toured the school before I went, which is interesting. But it's such a white space. I was not prepared for that coming from New York City, which is so diverse.
Especially talented.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, especially Talent Unlimited, which celebrated everyone regardless of, race, creed, sexual orientation, religion. Um, so coming to Emerson in Boston, which is super white, a white space, um, it was, I think, the first time where I really thought, oh, wow, okay, I'm not seen as equal, even if I am a good artist.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started to look at more of my history and, the African diaspora's history with art, and literature, because I realized that I wasn't being taught that part of history, which is really awful considering how much money I was spending to attend this college. But it wasn't until I met one of my professors. Her name is Gabby Follet, and she started teaching us a lot about works that came from Africa, works that were stemmed from the African, identity, the Black identity, queer and identity. But I started to realize how powerful it was to amplify these voices, really and truly. But then I also realized that there were systems in place that made it harder to do so. Um, I think now with all the protests and all the information that has been circulating, there's so much more access to Black powerful voices in the past who've continued to, fight for our voices to be heard, to be appreciated, to be credited, to be amplified and spread. So I'm just glad that now there's so much more access. And that's the thing. There's, with the LA Rebellion, with USC Black students who formed together to create powerful Black films. A lot of their work has gone unnoticed because there wasn't active work to preserve the work, because it wasn't deemed as equal as to mainstream Hollywood's narrative, So definitely in my future, I want to, once I reach a point where I do have enough funds to do so, I do want to start working on preserving films that are integral to the Black experience, because it's so important to see how things have maybe not changed and how things have changed.
Wow. Yeah. That's great. I'm looking forward to that. Danielle?
Well, ditto everything that Chassidy said. And to add on to that, I just a quick add on about the college experience being a Black student. I'm thankfully, there's always that teacher that kind of picks up that vibe from you and you kind of can cling on to just for support and information and resources. And that teacher for me was Alana Brownstein, and she works at Company One, which is a theater company in Boston. And she has taught me so much about the genealogy of Black theater and how it is so intentionally disintegrated from the genealogy that is taught in theater history. So, and it's just like, it's so interesting because she started out by explaining how maps are different and viewed different in every part of the world. In America, our map, we are the center of our map. But in China, they are the center of theirs. And it's just so interesting to think about the center of something and what surrounds it and what we make the center, but it's all the same map. It's all the same places. So thinking about that kind of opened my eyes to just like, well, there's so much more and so much questioning that I could be doing about what I'm being taught and what I'm receiving. And there's so many different stories that could be told from just one situation. And I think, as an artist, we all know that. And that's what makes art so interesting and so, indulging. I also believe in inclusivity in terms of ability and health. When I was at Chicken Shed, my eyes were opened up, and I know it's a silly name. It literally is the silliest name ever for a theater company, but they had people with wheelchairs, with crutches, with autism, with different mental illnesses, mental abilities, mental thoughts, creating art that I have never seen before. And it moved me in a way that I've never been moved. It's just so interesting how we always see able-bodied figures on stage and on the screen mostly, except for when it's romanticized like in Glass Menagerie. But we see so many able-bodied people, and we kind of discount the fact that there are people who aren't able-bodied. There are people who aren't even fully, able to speak, that have stories, that have things that they need to say, have art that they want to make. And the art that they make I can't even touch the type of art that they make. It's unreal. So I'm a full believer in that. And it just started pouring.
Okay, so we all know that there's not enough accessibility for theater in low-income communities and for younger audiences. What do you think could be done to change that?
Well, this is what I'm nervous about coming out of this pandemic. I really hope that in some way the art gets funded and artistry and theater companies get funded, because I know that mainstream Broadway is going to come back. It's a multi-billionaire industry, but I'm very concerned about the art that is in low income areas, like little theater companies, like for example, Tada Youth Theater, even though they're great, like graciously doing fine, places that, indulge in places like that. So I do think that the best way to keep those theater companies alive is through government funding. And I also think that, touring is an amazing way to be able to include all different types of people, younger generations, because, we love concerts. And even people who aren't able to go to Broadway or pay for them expensive tickets to see Hamilton. I mean, it's ridiculous. And also what Hamilton doing is right now, like streaming on Disney Plus, putting theater on the screen, which is a little bit iffy to a lot of people, but it's more accessible that way. So maybe that.
That's right. Chassidy, did you answer that question already? No. Chassidy.
No. Can you repeat the question, please? I'm sorry. I was so into what Danielle was saying.
Oh, okay. Accessibility for theater in low-income communities and for younger audiences. We know it's limited. What do you think can be done to change that?
That's an interesting question. Well, definitely ditto everything Danielle said. I think also with just social media and being online all the time, I think definitely there's a lot of theater companies that I know have taken up to streaming performances. And I think that that is key now, especially one, because we can't go anywhere, but also two, younger people are increasingly on their phones. So taking advantage of different social media networks and starting to stream theater. I think we have to also redefine to a certain extent what classical theater looks like and who it's for, and how we can re-envision what theater is. I think there's endless possibilities of what theater can be, especially in an online context, if we just listen to people who have those ideas to actually change it. I remember in high school, actually, we saw Spring Awakening. And that was the first time I've ever seen a play where they were also using ASL, but they were using two actors to portray one character. And it goes to show you that all it takes is just someone with an idea to really revolutionize the way we think about theater. It doesn't have to be the same way it's been for years. And that's also another thing too, is that there's so many different forms of theater, like you were saying, Danielle. Like what perspective are we looking at, and amplifying other perspectives, I think is just key.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you a question that you've probably been asked 1,000 times. Yeah, you've probably been asked that. But are there any particular actors or actresses that you look forward to working with once you break out into the industry?
Okay. There's so many good actors right now, really, that I really look up to and admire. I think I've always wanted to work with Tika Sumpter. I believe I'm pronouncing her name right. She's in Mixed-ish. She's the mother. Okay. Such a beautiful human being. I've always wanted to work with Taylor Page. She works with a lot of, she's been in a lot of Janixa Bravo's films. So recently she was in Zola, which I cannot wait to see. I'm so excited to see that. But filmmaker, I would love to work with Janixa Bravo. She is one of my inspirations, as well as Jeremy Harris. Harrison, who wrote Slave Play and directed Slave Play. There's also Ajane Russell, who I've always wanted to work with. She actually knows my friend. She went to LaGuardia in New York City, actually, while we were at Talent Unlimited, which is kind of crazy, small world. But yeah, I'm blanking on a few other names, but those are definitely the top 3 people I want to work with.
Okay, great. What about you, Danielle?
Well, I'm very mainstream. I would die if I worked with Tyler Perry, and I know how that may sound, but I do not care if I'm popping gum in the backseat of a car. I want to work with that man because he's a genius. The things that I could learn from him about directing, about acting, about life, about owning a company, a theater company for himself, and acting leads in his own. I can learn so much. I feel like a lot of people put a lot of, dirt on his name because he do play Medea, but this man has made it. He has made it. I would love to work with Denzel Washington. There's so much I would be able to learn from him. I would love to work with Issa Rae. I've been told Yes, I've been told that I remind people of Issa Rae. I don't really see it, but I want to see it in person, and maybe if I see her in person, I'll believe it. But I really want to work with Issa Rae. In terms of playwrights, I would love to work with Terrell Alvin McCraney. He also wrote Moonlight, and he wrote another play that I worked on in Boston University. Just his mind is so weird and colorful, and I just want to know how oh my gosh, forgive me, I have a cuckoo clock. We're gonna move past it. I want to know how he forms all these colors and all these thoughts and all these sceneries into art. And Marcus Gardley, who is a Boston native artist, playwright, and I love everything that he does. He's full of poetry, and that just excites me.
Amazing. All right. So Chassidy, you earned your BFA in December. Were you able to walk, or were you supposed to walk in June?
I was actually supposed to walk in June. So that was, I don't know, it was kind of interesting because I don't really care that much about walking. I think because I've had such a difficult experience at Emerson as a Black woman. I was just like, just give me my degree and I'm just gonna go. But I do think I do miss the fact that I would have celebrated with my other Black creators. That's something that I do miss. I don't know about walking per se, because I had such a challenging for 3.5 years there. But I mean, I didn't get to see a lot of the people that I love so much after December, and now everyone's spread out all across the country. So that is something that I definitely do miss and wish I would have been able to participate in, which is senior week.
Awesome. And you completed your BFA in 3.5 years. How were you able to do that?
So my last semester, so my school kind of screwed me over a little bit because I always do like an internship in the summer, and I missed the deadline to apply that internship I was doing for credit, which would have given me 8 credits. But I missed the deadline by a few days and they weren't taking it at all. So I ended up having to take another class, and then I took a CLEP exam, which essentially you pay like $100 for the ticket, you study, and if you pass with a 50, you get 4 credits. So I know, and see, these are things you don't really learn. No one really tells you. They don't advertise it. I just happened to tell a friend that I like really need to graduate a semester early because I didn't have the funds to do my full 4 years. And he told me, oh, well, you could do a CLEP exam and it's not as expensive as, doing other programs. So I ended up taking 5 classes my last semester, coupled with an internship and part-time job. I worked in the IT department for my entire time at Emerson, and then 2 CLEP exams to make up for the 8 credits that they wouldn't give me.
Wow, that's amazing.
Dani, yeah.
Dani, you look jealous.
I am. If I could have got out quicker, girl, whew, I would have. But you know, I have to be a little bit attention craving to be an actress. So I was really looking forward to the whole grand scheme of walking down a stage, looking beautiful with my gown and getting my diploma, taking a bow. But you know, that didn't happen. And I was like so appreciative of my family because they put together a graduation parade, I like to call it, where my friends kind of drove by and the police came and the fire department came and they congratulated me, and it was absolutely beautiful. Like it made me, because I've cried so much about not being able to graduate. I mean, especially on my graduation day where I logged onto the computer and then I logged off. And I was literally by myself in my dining room and I was like, I just graduated, and then cried because I was alone and there was no one else there. There was no one to hug at the moment, but that graduation parade just made it way better than an actual graduation, like way better than I could ask for. So I'm very appreciative of that.
That's really sweet. I love that.
I know, it was really sweet.
That's nice. That was sweet. And my final question for you both: what is your long-term goal?
Okay.
Since you're
Dani, take a breath.
Yeah, you could go ahead.
I guess I have to say this. I've said this so many times. A big goal for me is to be a mother, and I know that's like something that is like maybe obvious, but a lot of women don't really necessarily want to be a mother, don't really necessarily want to have kids. So I really value that as something that I really want to do. A goal of mine in the long run is to be a mother. Another long-term goal of mine is to be financially stable enough to give serious donations to a lot of the places that have paved the way for me. For example, my middle school, MS 180, Talent Unlimited, Tada Youth Theater, and even a little bit, because BU don't need any more money than it already has, just a little bit to BU, just being able to give back to places that have given so much to me. Another long-term goal, I guess, would be most definitely to direct a play, and a longer term goal, because I'm so insecure about my writing and I have so much self-doubt, is to write a play based on my mother's life coming out of Jamaica. And
oh, that should be interesting.
I know. She has had a very eventful life. She's been begging me to do it too, the narcissist.
Right. And I'm going to add another question to that. If you could give back to your community, what would you do?
Well, I'm just so grateful for the spaces that I have found myself in over the years. And one of the biggest ones that I'm grateful for is Tada Youth Theater. A lot of people, you know, it's in the middle of Lower West Manhattan, you know, it's really in a place where you would think that a lot of like white people would, you know, be interested in sending their kids with like, you know, a lot of high energy with so much privilege to go, but it's really nothing like that. It is a place where an extremely diverse group of kids get together. And I guess the biggest thing I want to do to give back to my community is have a Tada theater type of thing more accessible to people in the Bronx, to people in Brooklyn, to people in Queens, and not just in Manhattan. So maybe Nina, I could help the executive producer, Nina Trevins, to expand, make this a franchise.
What about you, Chassidy? What
are
your goals?
I think my goals long term, I definitely want to continue making films. Awards really aren't like a big deal to me. I mean, it would feel good to win one, but I do know that there are a lot of films that won awards that are not remembered now. You know what I'm saying? So it really has no bearing on if you're a good filmmaker, if you are using, you know, your own morals to make stories. But I definitely do want to create a feature-length film soon. I'm still in the shorts realm. I'm working on developing a TV show. I've been loving TV so much. I love Issa Rae's Insecure. That is something that it's just such a great piece of work. Um, and I don't know why it took me so long to start watching it, but it is so amazing. And even I was looking at the original series she made that was based.
Started on YouTube. Sorry to cut you.
Yeah, it started on YouTube. It was called Awkward Black Girl.
Yeah.
And just looking at that was 8 years ago, and now Insecure is 4 seasons in. It's just so remarkable. So like you said, I love Issa Rae. I just want to meet her and just be in all of her glory.
Yes.
But I definitely do want to also write for television. I think that's something that we're seeing is very popular, especially with the younger generation, like looking at Euphoria, things like that, more short form stories. So definitely doing that. I definitely want to go to a conservatory and work on my directing skills. I think that will definitely benefit me a lot, given that just even as an undergraduate, there aren't enough in-depth classes that you can take in general. At least at Emerson, there weren't a lot of level 2 directing classes. There was one, 8 seats. If you didn't get in, good luck.
Same.
Yeah, so I definitely do want to be more educated on that and look at, what directing really means in a larger context and where it started and how to actually use my voice in a more powerful way. Um, and I definitely do also want to start curating. I've been very interested in the role of a curator at large, and looking at Black museums and how curators really also tell a story and also direct a narrative. So those are long-term things. And if I could give back to my community, like Danielle said too, I would definitely give back to all of my schools that I've attended, because they've really molded me and given me so many opportunities. Like I look at just alone at Talent Unlimited and how many things we've gotten to do, like actually perform on stages, that's just something not everyone could say. And that's just a once in a lifetime opportunity, being surrounded by teachers who push you. I remember Mr. Nussbaum really pushed me to do the film program. If I did not go to that film program, I'm pretty sure I would have not been a filmmaker, at least right now, because that was really the turning point for me. Definitely want to, like I said before, work in preservation. So preserving different forms of Black media and Black art and Black literature. It's so important that we preserve all the intellect, because a lot of us don't have ties back to Africa, and at a certain point, there's only so much as Black individuals we might know about our own history. So definitely looking into mine, as my mom comes from Grenada. And it's kind of crazy if you like Google Grenada history, there's not much at all, which is so, so sad. So definitely looking into that in the coming months.
Oh, great. All right. So we've come to the end of our program. I'm so proud of both of you. You're so passionate and knowledgeable and ready to go out there and just take on the work. Super excited for both of you. And I'm very, very proud of you both. And I wish you all the best in your endeavors. And I know you're both going to do extremely great. So I look forward to seeing your work. Seeing you in the theater and on film, Dani, and I look forward to seeing your productions.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you for being on the program. It was such a pleasure having you both. Like I'm so excited for you both. So excited. All right. So thank you. And thanks to our viewers on Facebook for joining us this evening. And we'll see you all next week. Bye. Bye, ladies. Thank you.
Bye.